Okay, we're back. As you can see, we've got all our parts cleaned up. We're going to start. We've already removed and discarded the old scarf cut sealing rings from the input shaft here. So let's install the new rings, and we're going to do so by taking a bit of assembly gel and filling in the grooves here. Now, what this does, besides make a mess, is this will hold the sealing rings into the groove, so there won't be a problem when we install them into the groove here. When we install them into the pump, I should say. So that's where these are going to live, is in the stator. There we go. And you can see that when you push that in, that'll push the grease out of the groove, and that's what we want. And last one. There. Now that's all ready to be installed. Now we're going to install our seals and start assembling the input drum. We'll start with the input retainer. This is a lip seal, an inside lip seal that we're going to put down into the drum. I know it's kind of hard to see this, but it goes in the drum like so. A little bit different doing this for the camera and not just at a bench. There, you know, you just need to tuck it into the groove all the way around. Nothing to it. Might want to take a little assembly gel and lube up the seal with whatever your assembly lube of choice is. So that's all set to go. We can set that aside. Now, we've got our seals for our overdrive reverse piston. If you decided to take this out, which is entirely up to you, now is the time to get that back in there. You'll be using a press right here and just install a snap ring. And always take a look to make sure that your orificing filter didn't fall out of the drum. That would be very problematic, and it's staked in there pretty good, so that shouldn't be a problem, but it's just something that you want to check for. So we'll start with our inside O-ring into the groove. Another inside lip seal. And there we go. Once you get it started into the groove, it's started into the groove, and you could see how I'm working it into the groove as we go around here. See, I can't do that without watching what I'm doing. There, and it's all tucked in, nice and smooth. There again. Take a little bit of assembly gel so that we can fit our pistons into each other. And once again, you can do it with whatever your assembly gel or assembly lube of choice is, whether you use a brush or whatever. Make sure that it's nice and lubed up for assembly. So there's those, done with those. Now to the hub support. Now, before we go together, after it's cleaned up, and this isn't a real high wear area, so we don't get a lot of calls of it here at ATRA, but you always want to inspect the groove, inspect where the sealing rings ride for any kind of grooving. As I said, it hasn't been a real big problem that we've seen, but it's always good. It's always a good habit to check the sealing ring board. It doesn't really need any treatment. There's a bushing down there as well that rides on the stator. You might give it a visual inspection. Like I said, I've never replaced one myself because that's not a high wear item. Still, keep in mind it's a good habit to always inspect those. So we'll start with the inside seal here. Just so you could see how I'm working it around and tucking it into the groove. And if you have to, yeah, there you go. There, it's all nice and tucked in. Now, I talked a little bit about the colors. We've got 3 different colors here. The blue goes on first. Like so. Then our brown goes on next. Now, you'll see there's 2 grooves there, a top and a bottom. This O-ring wants to live in the bottom groove right here, because this other snap ring is the other groove is where the snap ring is going to go. Just like that. Okay. And finally, we've got our last lip seal, which we could start in the groove. And there we go. So now we've got the 3 seals installed, the 4 if we count the lip seal here. Now we're going to lube them up and keep going with our assembly here. So a little bit of lube on all these seals. Obviously, you can never use too much of a good thing here. Okay, now we have all of our seals installed on the support and the input retainer and the OD. So now we're going to start the whole assembly process. But to begin the assembly process, we're going to install the input retainer into the overdrive drum, like so. Now there's one critical step here that you want to make sure that this is lined up with the slots here, and I'll show you why. Our pressure plate is over here. This is the Underdrive reverse pressure plate. Now if we don't line those up later on in the assembly, we won't be able to install that drum because all those tabs have to be lined up. Okay, so that's the reason why they're lined up. Now, if you want, you could even leave that in there, but I think we'll be just fine to continue the assembly without it. So now we're going to install the drum onto the support. See, we've got splines there that go to the splines on the support. And to just set it on down there and then give it a, here it hit the bottom. So everything's lined up. Now we're going to install our beveled snap ring with the flat side down, the bevel side up into the groove. And to make this job a little bit easier, I'm going to take it over to the spring press and give this some downforce so it goes into the groove real nice and easy, and we'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so we've got our snap ring in. We've got the flat side down, bevel side up. Now we're going to continue the installation, the rebuild here by lubing up our underdrive piston and setting it down right on into the, there we go. Return spring and our retainer. Now these come in every kit, so you're always going to be using a new one. So we're going to put up some seal lube here on these seals. Now, I want you to be careful when we're putting this back together again, because it's kind of cockeyed right here with the spring. Now, as it goes down, it'll kind of center itself up, but you want to pay real close attention that the seal doesn't get turned over. So you may want to go around with a feeler gauge, your seal installer tool, whatever it is that you use, and make sure that that seal's tucked in. So once again, we're going to go over the spring press and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back from the press. We've got our snap ring and our retainer down in there. The seal didn't have a problem going down in there. So the next thing we're going to do is install the input shaft, which may go all the way through, may need a little tap on the bench to get it going. And here's our little round snap ring that we're not even going to use snap ring pliers for, because it's a fairly easy snap ring to get into the groove without breaking my fingernails. There. It's all good to go. Back in the hole on the bench. Now we're going to assemble our clutch packs. But we're not going to, at this point in time, we're not going to put in our clutch hubs right now, because we need to check and adjust the clutch clearances first. And if we do that, if we put these together now, like so and like so, obviously I'm not putting all the parts in, I'm just demonstrating, we're not able to get a proper feeler gauge down in there. We can't, it's just not going to work. So what the factory shows you to do is to stack it up somewhat in this manner with the clutches and all that in it, and then take a benched base, like a magnetic base dial indicator, and run it over here with the long plunger and pull it up with the scribe and do all that. And that takes too long, we're not going to do that. But we are going to check the clutch clearance. I think you should always do that to make sure it's a proper build. So we're going to essentially build the drum all the way up, check all the clearances, and then take it back apart and then do a final assembly on it. So we're going to start with our Underdrive clutch. We got 4 clutches and 4 steels. We're going to go in with steels and friction, except for we're going to leave the last one out. This doesn't go in yet. Okay, remember, we're going to put in our snap rings. We've got the 2 grooves. And the first snap ring that goes in into the lower groove is our flat wide snap ring. There. Now we've got it. We've got that snap ring in the bottom groove. Because the friction was there, it wouldn't go in that easy. So now we've got the friction in there, and remember, we're going in with our input UD. It's actually the Underdrive Overdrive pressure plate. The Overdrive is going to go on there. We talked about the bevel side facing up and the step side facing down. So we're going to put that in. Now we're going to go in with our beveled snap ring, flat side down, and we're going to work that into the groove right there. All right. Now the pressure plate is installed. It's captured in that groove. It's captured between those 2. And so now we've got our clutch clearance there. So I've got a couple of different feeler gauges here, angled type, and this is something been around for a long time. This is a spark plug checking gap tool, and this doesn't quite fit. You know, I can barely get it in there if I really force it, but this is a 50 thousandths gap here, and the spec should be 35 to 60. So what we're going to do is get that in between that and the clutch. Now you can see that how that goes in there. Can you get that? Okay, so that goes in there and that fits, and our clutch, it went in there kind of snug. So, you know, but it did go in. So it's 50, I'd say maybe 48 to 50 thousandths right there, which was right in with specifications, see? So I kind of had to push it in there, but it goes, and yeah. So we're going to say 48 to 50,000. That's a 50 thousandths gap right there. So that's right within specifications. If it's not within specifications, you can check out the chart over my shoulder right here, and that'll give you the part numbers and the different thicknesses of the pressure plate so you can adjust this clutch clearance. So we're not going to take this back apart just yet. We're going to continue on building up our clutch pack here. So next comes the overdrive clutch, 4 frictions, 3 steels. We're going to start with the friction, steel, friction, steel, friction, steel. So now we're ready for our pressure plate, but not yet. Remember, this has a very wide groove right here. It's not a couple of grooves, but it's a single white groove right here. So the first thing that goes in that wide groove is our wavy snap ring here. It's kind of egg-shaped, it's rather thin, so it's going to go in that wide groove like so. You push it all the way down to the bottom of the groove, just with your fingertips. It's not a big deal because the pressure plate's going to knock it down all the way into the groove. So next we're going to put on the pressure plate. Now, you'll see that the groove is, I don't know if you can really see that, but the groove is not quite visible right here. It's not far, but what we're going to do is we're going to take our flat snap ring here, and we're going to fit it into the drum like so. So it just goes in. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this snap ring in this groove like so. Just give it a push down, and that started it in there. Can you see how just that little push started that snap ring into the groove? Now I'm going to push down and work the snap ring around the groove, around the drum, and into the groove all the while I'm pushing down and using a twisting motion here on the screwdriver. And that keeps the snap ring into the groove. See? There we go. Now we're twisting it in the groove. There. Nothing to it. It's definitely seated. Now with that in mind, we can see our clutch clearance here. Notice that that's the overdrive clutch. The overdrive clutch clearance, you got to get this, is 19 thousandths to 92 thousandths. So that's a huge, huge distance right there. So we can use a flat one. Let's see, this is about 35 thousandths right here. And I can get that in. It's got a little bit of slack, so I could probably add another 10 thousandths and be thick. So we're going to call this about 45 thousandths right here. And it's non-adjustable, guys, folks. And so if you don't have that kind of clearance, you might have screwed something up putting it back together again. So, but it's a big range. Okay, we're done checking the clearance on our overdrive clutch, which is pretty sloppy, but okay. And now we're going to go to the reverse clutches with the friction, the steel, and the last friction plate. And you know, it's pretty straightforward on this one. The flat side goes down. I don't think Got to give it a little tap, 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 tappy, tappy. And there we go. The snap ring's all there. And then we're going to pry it back up again, like so. And check our clutch clearance. Now, clutch clearance should be 39 to 49 thousandths. We got 35 here. And that goes in just perfectly right there. Well, not much play in there. I mean, I can move it, but there's no up and down play. So we're going to call this right at 35 thousandths. So that's good to go. If it was not good to go, you would change the selective snap ring according to the chart that's above my shoulder one more time. And those are current part numbers, by the way. I did check those part numbers, and they are very current. So now we've got our clutches all set up. We've checked the clearances. We know they're good to go. Now we're going to pop all the clutches back out and do a final assembly on the drum, and we'll be right back.